concept of freedom a concept worth fighting for. I think that what we are witnessing today is not a fight about freedom in the sense of for freedom or against freedom, but the fight between different dimensions of the notion of freedom itself. For example, on one extreme, he is so crazy that I almost like him, Milei, the new Argentinian president, who defines himself as anarcho-capitalist. He will, I think, not be able to fulfill his program, but to actualize his program. But it's interesting when he was asked what to do in Argentina to fight poverty, and this is for me a consequent liberalism, at least a certain dimension of it. He, as most of us probably know, he proposed to not only legalize, but even solicit that parents, adults, can legally sell their organs, like if somebody needs my kidney or whatever, and their children. Now, in an abstract sense, you can say, yes, this is an important extension of the notion of freedom. You can even trade freely dispose of this. But it's problematic. Now, I'm not simply saying in a primitive pseudo-Marxist way that nonetheless there is an essential core, or that we should of the freedom, or that we should make a class analysis and distinguish different dimensions. No, practically always when people are united fighting for freedom, if you look at it closely, there are different dimensions in it. I remember a pathetic example. I'm not proud of me today for participating in it. Over 30 years ago, when Slovenia, my country, was moving towards independence, the notion was always also freedom, freedom. But it was so clear that, for example, for some people, old right-wingers, freedom means we want to get back what was nationalized, what was taken from us. For religious people, freedom meant full freedom of religion, which of course for them meant full access to the church, of the Catholic Church, to public media, and so on and so on. There were some trade union leftists for whom freedom meant more workers' rights. There were gay people, okay, at that time they were not called LGBT+, but all these, let's call them sexual minorities. They wanted their freedom. And of course, at that moment, nobody was attentive to how incompatible these notions of freedom were. So I don't think this is something that we can then in a primitive way dispel by introducing a distinction of authentic true freedom and false freedom and so on. The notion of freedom is in itself inconsistent. This is why now comes the first provocation. Quite often, even if a people is fighting for freedom, what they actually, although maybe not clear in their mind, want is even more oppression than in the existing regime. So to go to the end to provoke you, I can well imagine have dictatorial military intervention, which are necessary to protect freedom. It's another question, are they enough? To give you two examples that I always like to mention. Remember, some 15 years ago, or 20, there were so-called free elections in Algeria. And later, in Egypt. When was it? 10 years ago, part of the Arab Spring. What happened there? The active minority, mostly middle-class, educated young people, organized vast demonstrations for freedom. Okay, then they got free elections. They didn't win. Muslim fundamentalists won. And the result was that the army, with grudging approval of the very people who began protests, accepted that nonetheless the army rule is better. Also, we should be here absolutely against any taboos. There are situations like Syriza in Greece where public vote really means something. Here I slightly disagree with otherwise our good friend Alain Badiou, who has this, how should I call it, absolute distrust of vote. No, but I also don't think that free voting should be fetishized. Don't we feel this? If you have a spontaneous leftist sense that there are situations, you feel it in the air, where election matters, where it is very important who wins. Then, but this is an exception. I agree this. Then another pessimist point of mine, which I repeat also in the book, this is horrible, but except in exceptional situations, I don't think that the majority of the people really want freedom. If by freedom you mean we have a big dilemma, we have now to decide. No, and I understand people, I'm as a rule among them. I want to get a clear indication from orientation which is close to me, what is to be done. I don't want to do it myself. I want to be cynical. I want to be told this is the right thing to do. I want my freedom in normal, peaceful political state to be a formality. I decide, but only formally. Freedom should not be, sorry for using this stupid jargonistic term, the master signifier. Freedom is, as Alain Badiou would have said, freedom today especially is not a sign which, a concept which allows us to draw the crucial right distinction. No, freedom is a term which is in itself, it only designates a certain terrain of the battle. It's absolutely crucial. While, of course, we should make tactical alliances with liberals when we are fighting for women's rights, LGBT, or whatever. Also, of course, all other things, free education, healthcare, and so on. We should never forget that the new right-wing populism is a secondary phenomenon. It's a sign, a symptom of something going wrong in the basic liberal democratic project itself. If we don't bear in mind this, we've sold our souls to the devil. Now I'm slowly returning up to the more philosophical core of your question. I was well aware of the risk of opposing freedom as such, which in some sense means not in a human sense, freedom as a term of humanity, but even an anti-humanist freedom, radical, self-destructive freedom, and concrete freedom. First, now I will follow my socialist line, although it's not enough today, I claim. You know, what we who still want to be radical left should emphasize again and again is something that even many honest conservatives know today. To be free, it's possible only to be free in the sense of concrete freedom in everyday life. This is possible only within a well-defined set of social rules, written, very important, and unwritten rules, even good manners. We should respect these liberal freedoms. We should just add something, which is we should fight for concrete circumstances, laws, social manners, financial support, which enable people to actually enjoy these freedoms. For example, general health care for liberals, conservative liberals. This was, I don't like too much Obama, but he did try something great, which was already too much for the United States, Obamacare. You remember why? Okay, he half succeeded, then it was abolished by Trump. The basic conservative idea was this limits our freedom. The state will prescribe to you, you should take this doctor, you will lose your freedom there. Now this, here I'm on the side of Obama. Obama didn't limit your freedom. If you have money, you can still go to a better private doctor. But I must emphasize unwritten rules of freedom, especially today when very few, although now things are turning dark, very few people would be openly, directly racist. Racism, sexism, and so on survive at the level of unwritten rules, everyday practices, and so on and so on. There is where our fights should be. Led. So this is one thing, but nonetheless, there are positions, moments, and I think we are approaching such a moment where a more radical measures will be necessary. We are approaching a moment where a certain dose of abstract freedom, more radical freedom, will be necessary. By abstract freedom, I mean you no longer, in your free activity, you no longer can rely on the existing set of social laws, rules, manners. You know, the problem when you get this abstract freedom, which means a moment when the legal order vacillates, and so on, is, and again, so that you will not accuse me of being a neo-fascist leftist, you know who gave me this idea? You will not believe me. Alain Badiou. We debated once cultural revolution, and he told me, when I told him, but nonetheless, then Mao ordered the attack on Shanghai Commune and so on, and he said, yes, this ecstatic moment, exactly, as I would say, of abstract freedom, has to be stopped at a certain level. And the point is, this is again my dark communism or dark freedom. Who will do it? Will we leave it to the enemies to do it, or will we, the revolutionaries, gather the courage to do it? Crucial for me, the first one, freedom, crucial is for me the beautiful quote from Sartre that I list in my book. When Sartre wrote that under German occupation, we were totally under control, no concrete freedom, but we were more free than ever. Why? Because again, there was order, but it was not our own order. So we were more abstractly free. We have to do it. And here, if you permit me to ask myself a question. No, here we really touch the problem of what is freedom, basically. In what sense? Abstract freedom is not something in the air as opposed to concrete forms. There are forms of bad and good, social revolutions, but also public disorder, carnivalesque orgies, where abstract freedom becomes empirically testable or reality that we can, for a brief moment, experience. Now we cover the, nonetheless, social aspect of freedom. But the second chapter of my book, which is for me, sorry for this term, metaphysically the crucial, is a much more naive question. It is, but are we basically free or not? I go here into the topic usually covered by cognitive sciences, brain sciences, and so on and so on. And I reject the usual compatibilist version, which is basically, for me, too cynical. According to this version, it doesn't matter what freedom is metaphysically. Are we really free, or are all our acts determined by not unconscious, because unconsciousness is psychic phenomenon, by neuronal processes and so on? The standard answer is the one by Daniel Dennett, who says, listen, of course, we all want to feel free to do what we want, what we desire, and so on. But it's a totally different question. Are we, when we feel free and so on, are we effectively free, or is this still part of the global natural determinism? What I'm really fighting for is this question. Why? Now, I don't agree with Dennett and others, whom I otherwise appreciate, that this is irrelevant. I think that the horror, potential horror, of today's technological developments, which are, of course, embedded in logic of capitalist reproduction, is that this metaphysical dimension, are we free or not, is directly intervening into our reality. Not only publicity, but different forms of now wired brain controlling our brain and so on. Here, something which till now was just a theoretical point, like you could say, who cares if I'm metaphysically free or not, is becoming a fact of our political life. Through, again, different ways we are wired, different ways we are controlled and manipulated precisely when we experience ourselves as totally free. Here, although I often don't agree with him, but Yuval Harari, the big bestseller guy, I often don't agree with him, but he nonetheless said something pertinent here. Well, he says, what was till now, till the last decade, an abstract theoretical question, like, you could still enjoy your life, live normally, and then engage in metaphysical debates. I'm not really free. Freedom is my user's illusion. But today, no longer. With the latest technology, these theoretical dilemmas become practical facts of the reason of my level of my control and so on. And here, now we come, if you permit me, to my big metaphysical point. And I think this is freedom at its most radical.